All right. Let's see here. Full screen.
I hear
What's up,
you.
man? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Where are you today?
I'm in the attic of our house.
The attic. I hear you, man.
It's yeah, the top floor of our house, and it's a cool, wet day here in the Chicago area.
A cool wet day.
Yeah.
Y'all, seems like I read, didn't I see that y'all, didn't Chicago Bears win their game yesterday?
Yes, they did. Apparently they won 3 in a row,
Nice.
which apparently
Huh?
is unexpected.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. Yeah, I just saw, I don't know where I saw some headline flash or something that replaced the quarterback with somebody else and won or something like that. I don't really watch football anymore, but I did see that. Let me see if I can move here.
Yeah, I don't know any specifics. I pretty much watch restaurant.
You watch what?
Restaurant.
I hear you, man. It's hot here. It's humid and hot here today.
We got the opposite here. We're chilling.
You're chilling. Yeah.
But we had a great week. It was really nice summer-like week this past week. So
Oh, good.
that was good for us. Good for our business.
Let's see here. Wait a minute. Let me just get a couple of things squared away here, and we'll start. Review. Oh wait, that's a little better. I kind of like that better. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Can you see me okay? Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good. How about me?
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect. I'm just going to edit this first part out. Because it's recording now, what I do is I clip this first part out. So I'll do an intro here in a sec, just as if we just started, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, what's up, y'all? I'm excited today to have Chick Evans here with me. We've talked lots of times over the years on the podcast, just not on the podcast, just catching up in general. And Chick's up outside Chicago. First place he had was in New York, Maxie's Supper Club, and he's also has a place in Chicago, Great Coast Commons. And then you've got something else you started recently as well this summer, right, Chick?
Yeah, right here in Kenilworth, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, where we have Great Coast Commons. We opened Great Coast Summer Grill, which is a 5-night-a-week, Wednesday through Sunday, pop-up restaurant on the street and Parkway, right around the corner from our restaurant. That is, a complete pop-up Wednesday through Sunday night, weather permitting, where we set up our kitchen, our bar, our full restaurant on the street, and then on the Parkway, it's a 2-lane road that has a nice 20-foot wide parkway running down the middle with grass and trees in it. The villages let us not only close the road, but also set up, we have tables and benches, like beer hall style tables and benches along the parkway. And that's been a huge help for us this summer, obviously. And the weather's been great most of the summer, although I do have a lot of weather anxiety Wednesday through Sundays, wondering whether we're going to be able to close. Yeah, weather. But mostly it's been really good.
So okay, now do you have what happens like if it's raining or whatever? Do you have any way to cover it or?
No, we have tents over our kitchen and bar. I'm getting a little bit of echo here. Our kitchen and bar are covered with tents, and then the outdoor area where the guests are is not covered. So there's only been one occasion where we had a really unexpected downpour, and it was toward the end of service, and some of the guests ran under our tents, and there's a building that we're renting that has awnings hanging off it, so people went over there, and some people just packed up their food or were finishing up. But for the most part, we've been able to call it right before the evening happened, meaning, we use Schedule Fly to message our staff by 2 o'clock every afternoon if we're not going to open, to let them know that tonight, we're expecting thunderstorms tonight or whatever it might be, and we're not opening, which we probably had to do. We finally got this thing open in the middle of July, so it's been like 10 weeks now, and we've probably had to not open probably, I would say, 5 or 6 nights out of those 50 nights. So it's been a really good, positive weather experience for us. And our guests love it. I mean, they're just so happy to get out of their houses and be able to be in an environment where they're completely outdoors. Unless they go in the building to use the restrooms, everything's outdoors for the guests.
Have you, how did you get that going? I mean, obviously that was a result of, and what I guess a net positive result of all that's happening with COVID, but you had to go get permission. And then is it like, how long are you able to do this? Is it something where you have a certain amount of months or a certain date where you won't be able to do it anymore? Or is it just, how's that structured?
Well, how it started was, we opened our restaurant in January. We opened up, we probably talked about this the last time we talked, but the Great Coast is the
You
first.
opened Great Coast Commons.
Right. The Great Coast Commons is our first and only restaurant in Kenilworth, Illinois, which is a village that was developed in the early 1900s. And it's this really nice suburb just north of Chicago. And there's never really been a restaurant or a bar there. So there had been a kind of a changing of the guard in the village board over the last 5 or 6 years. It's kind of made them more business, pro-business and interested in having amenities in the neighborhood. And so that worked out really well. And then 8 weeks after we opened, we had to become a takeout only restaurant because we opened on January 16th, and by March 17th, the state had shut down restaurants for in-person dining. So we just have had a really good relationship with the village from the time we approached them about putting a restaurant in this building that we purchased and going through a special use permit process and liquor licensing, and just working with them in general on trying to help make the business district more vital. We've had really great relationships with the village board and with the village management. So they actually approached us saying, what can we do to help you this summer? Like, we know you've got very limited outdoor space where your restaurant is, and I know you're gonna be able to put some tables outside there, but we've got some space that maybe we can work with. So they suggested maybe we take a look at Park Drive, thinking that Park Drive is just about 100 feet south of us. We're kind of in the middle of the block. And they said, maybe you should serve out here. And they were thinking that we would just run our first full service restaurant with an outdoor dining on the street and on the parkway, which I didn't think was very feasible to try to do full service out of our kitchen and be 100, 125 feet away, whatever it was. To try to serve that and still maintain the takeout business that we have, which we think we're going to need to get us through the winter, and the limited on-premises business we had. So after thinking about it for several days, because I really was like, man, does it make sense because I knew we were going to only be able to get the road at night. And I said, is it going to really make sense for us to set up and break down an entire kitchen and bar operation out there, and the investment that's going to take to buy all the equipment and get ready for this? And I thought about it for 4 or 5 days, and we looked at a couple other alternative scenarios, and we're like, no, this is the best opportunity. And then I talked to the gentleman that owned the building on the corner, who'd already expressed his interest in letting us use the sidewalk around his property. And this happens to be that the corner building at this location has been vacant for about 2 years. So he gave us a reasonable rent to rent the space through the end of October, which is when the village gave us permission. They gave us permission to use the road until October 31st, which up here there's typically very little outdoor activity after October as far as restaurants go. If it predicted to be nice the first few weeks in November, we might be able to work something else out. But we're permitted to close that road Wednesday through Sunday night at 4 o'clock from 4 to 10, and use the parkway until the end of October right now. And it's been a huge help for our business this summer.
Do you think that, like, okay, so a couple of things this really brings up. One is, this really underscores the incredible number of relationships that restaurant owners need to build and maintain to be successful. It's with your customers, it's with your staff, it's with your purveyors, it's with your local government leaders. It's it's quite, well, it's just it's a critical piece of this, isn't it? I mean, I've never really, I've thought about it. I've always thought about how important it is to have relationships, particularly as an independent restaurant, because, you know, you're so dependent on having a good reputation in your community. But in this situation, I mean, those kinds of things are really important. And when you can't plan for something like this and it comes up, gosh, if you'd had a bad relationship with your local leadership, or, you know, you were at odds with them or button heads, this could have gone the opposite direction, couldn't it? I mean, isn't it amazing how many relationships you have to have? And so much of what you do in hospitality is just, it's the relationship business, isn't it?
I think you're 100% right. I mean, we could have never pulled this off if we hadn't really developed a good relationship with our community, the people living in it, of course, the people that live in the neighborhood, and also the leaders of the village and the management of the village. I mean, there were, you know, through our development processes, there were some things that happened, and the village actually made some big mistakes in approving our plans that were kind of expensive for me. And I just took it all in stride, and I was like, hey, you know, there were, you know, some mistakes made, and they were very apologetic, and I was just like, you know what, we'll make it right, you know, let's just continue on this process and get the restaurant open. And then they were very helpful in making it, from their side, make the inspectors come in quicker. And, you know, so it was always a very cooperative relationship. And I think, and it's, you know, it's challenging, I think, dealing in a lot of places with government and government officials and the staff of the bureaucracy that's in place that runs a community. You know, luckily this one's really small, and they've been very much in favor of us doing what we're doing right from the get-go. And they knew, you know, we opened a restaurant and we actually live in this tiny village too. So that really helped right from the start gain their trust. Like, they knew that they had a guy who wasn't from around here, although my wife grew up in a neighboring town, but I'm originally from New York State. And, you know, opening up my first restaurant in Illinois, although I worked in restaurants in Illinois for many years, 20 plus years ago. But I think building relationships right from the start was what we did. We went in and, you know, talked very frankly about our business, and for our special use permit process, and have, you know, tried to accommodate concerns that people have had right from the start. And from the get-go, it was definitely, they recognized that we were serious about building relationships and being here long-term and trying to please as many people as we possibly could. That said, you know, it wasn't 100% support. We had two people that came up to me and threatened to sue me about closing the road. And, you know, but what was interesting is that, you know, those people were really outliers, because there was an actual Zoom village board meeting about closing the road for us. And I was told there were about 15 emails sent in, and about 10 people spoke on our behalf. And there were more people ready to speak on our behalf, but became kind of redundant. So there was, you know, I'd say we have 99.8% of the population here is in full support of what we're doing, with a few outliers that, you know, it's interesting because I think it wasn't just about our business. It was also about the village wanting to do something for the community and give them something to do and have them have a place to go. We had just started this restaurant, and we're open for 2 months, and everybody was loving it. And then we became a takeout restaurant, and they knew that the summer, and who knows how long in the future, we're going to have challenges getting a lot of people in the restaurant, getting them together. And they really embraced us as part of the community, and someone who's, you know, it's a business that is bringing people together and giving people what they want. And I think from the village development point of view, hopefully going to attract more businesses to their neighborhood, downtown neighborhood. But back to your point, I think, you know, it's all about relationships. If we were at odds about, you know, things that the government wanted, you know, the local government wanted us to do, and we tried to cut corners or work around or not be straight with them, you know, you would erode those benefits that come up when a situation like this happens, where almost everybody's on your side and really want to help you succeed. And that's certainly based on relationships and, you know, really long-term thinking, and wanting to be in the community for a long time, and wanting to keep people happy and keep them smiling, which is, you know, to me, like, it's not just good business, it's good living, but at the end of the day, that ends up being your best marketing too. It just, keeping people happy and keeping a positive feel in the community about what you're doing is so important. And this is, like you said, this is paying the dividends now because the village is very cooperative with us about helping us succeed.
You said you had 2 people threaten to sue you. Were those members of the community?
Yeah, there were people that lived up the street that we were closing, and they were just kind of outliers. I think they were a little bit in their own little tunnel world. They didn't really grasp the community idea and the importance of what restaurants and community places bring to the neighborhood. They threatened, they came up and, one of them came up with a video camera and was like videoing us and saying, oh, this is not allowed, and the village board can't, help a private business. And I was like, well, we're doing it for the community, and quite honestly, I think we spent about 40 grand to set this thing up. And I think at this point we've probably made that back. But I mean, basically this was a huge investment. And, at the end of the day, financially, what I have at the end of the season is a bunch of used restaurant equipment, because it's not like I put out a bunch of capital and I got back some cash flow. But it also was hugely positive for our community and for our business and for continuing to establish our brand in the neighborhood. But I think the outliers were people that were a little out of touch with reality and out of touch with their community. But they were, it was like, I took them seriously and I respected and listened to them, but they were definitely like such a small, minor, noise. It was like a little thorn in the side to considering the amount of positivity and support that we've had.
So, yeah, man, I hear you. That stuff's quite interesting.
And there was nothing legal ever came of it. The one guy was.
Well, I was going to say that's a lot of idle threats. It would seem. I would imagine. But
it was a little extra stress as you're going through the process.
As if you needed any more. Yeah.
And we came up with the idea, and within a week or two, we had the permission from the village, and a month later we were open. So, we opened a restaurant basically in a month. It was a new concept, new menu. We're doing prep in our original restaurant kitchen at Great Coast Commons down the street, but Great Coast Summer Grill has its own menu. We're doing, pizzas. We got these cool little Gosney rock box pizza ovens that cook one pizza at a time, but they get up to like 900 degrees. So we got 3 of those. We have a grill. And then the rest of it's all cold station. So we've got a salad station. We do antipastas and salads, and we do a couple desserts, and we have pizzas and grilled skewers of chicken and fish and steak and veggies and antipastas, pizzas. And, it's a very limited menu, but it was like a really nice kind of summer grill menu, kind of like a somewhat of an Italian kind of, casual street food almost. Italian/Greek a little bit, a little Mediterranean thing, and a full bar, we had a bunch of summer cocktails we have, and beers and wines, and non-alcoholic beverages for the kids, and it was pretty amazing to, I didn't even draw the thing out. I just had it in my head. It was like the business plan that was only an idea. It was a thought. It never really. I was
going to say, it's a big. I imagine you had to take a few days to think about it. There's so many unknowns with that. A lot of risk, a lot of investment up front.
We brought our our point of sale system over there. So we ran an internet wire from our building across 2 other buildings and put a Wi-Fi out there, and had we had a 50 amp electrical panel made for outdoors that we plug into the building and unplug every day. So we built our little information and electric infrastructure, and it's all portable. It all gets disconnected every day. Everything. This entire operation gets set up and broke down every day. At 3:30 in the afternoon, we start setting up. At 4 o'clock, we can close the road. So we're setting up like the tables on the parkway from 3:30 to 4. At 4, we close the road, and by 10 o'clock at night, everything's gone. There's no sign of a restaurant being there.
How's your team doing? How are your folks on your team?
They're doing pretty well. it feels like a normal busy operation right now. And, I'm concerned about now moving into the colder weather, and, we're really trying to determine what is next. It's been it felt like it was like a week to week planning, and now it's becoming like more like a month to month planning. And now I need to think about like the next 6 months really. So, but the team is doing well. I mean, I think really well. I mean, I'm really, really pleased with how well everybody's handling everything. We've got a really good, mature core of people who are experienced and um, really, see what's going on and are really being flexible and willing to pivot and willing to try new things, and keeping the original restaurant relevant. And our chef has like been doing Oktoberfest specials for the past few weeks, and so just keeping it in shape. I think it's easy to kind of get burned out and get lulled during this time, but I think it's like I think we've entered into a phase where there's some normalcy to it, so it feels like a regular restaurant, although capacity is so limited indoors still for us. And it's just, COVID's on the tip of everybody's tongue, and it's on hyper, it's in everybody's awareness. And but at the same time, we've been really lucky. We haven't had a outbreak of any sort in the restaurant, which I know, it feels like, will we beat the vaccine? Because it's like at some point it feels like almost everyone's going to get exposed, right? So we've been lucky as far as that goes, both in Ithaca at Maxie's and in Kenilworth. But we're also pretty vigilant. We've had a few staff members get on airplanes for various reasons, and when they come back for their trips, we say, oh, well, 4 to 5 days later, you should get tested, and then if it's negative, you can come back to work. So we're trying to look at people's lifestyles and decisions they make and how they may affect the restaurant. So we've been wearing masks and that for months, and we're all used to that, and washing our hands and all the protocols and all that stuff. So everyone's just kind of rolling with it. It's been, there's not been a lot of pushback or drama about it. I think people are pretty resilient team, I think. So I feel really fortunate about that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in the winter because everybody, there's just more stuff in general, and then everybody's going to think as soon as they have any sort of symptom of anything that they might have COVID. I went and got tested last week. I think I have an ear infection, but I was like, I had a fever and I was run down. I have body aches. I was like, nope, here it is. I got it. And the good news is, though, you can get tested so easily now and you get results quickly. So I did this it was like a drive-through with CVS. I logged in, I put my name in, I selected a time, I rolled up on the set in my car. They literally handed me the stuff in my car and watched me swab myself and walked me through the process. And then 36 hours later, I got an email saying, negative. There'll be a lot of that in the wintertime.
That's the thing. The cold season, and the flu thing, and people are, we're probably gonna have a lot of call-ins, which at this point we got to welcome it. Like anyone gets a scratchy throat or a runny nose or any type of fever. I mean, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's just
you don't know. Do I have a cold or do I have COVID? Hopefully they'll just keep making it easier and easier and quicker to test. I know, who was it? I was talking to somebody in Boulder last week, and he said that they had just gotten a chef who tested positive. They were sending everybody to Denver because in Denver there was like a 1 hour result. Like in Boulder they have like a 24-hour turnaround, but in Denver, half an hour away or whatever it is, you get like a 1 hour, which is critical for, I would think y'all would. I mean, that's really, really important. That difference in time is
well, I think
critical.
I think that I don't know. I don't, if a vaccine doesn't work or they can't come up with something that works, I think it's going to be testing that's going to be a big part of our life for the next few years, and it's going to have to be something that can be done at home, in an instant results or something like that, almost like a home pregnancy test or something like that, where it's like somehow they come up with a way where it's inexpensive and everybody has it and everybody tests themselves once a week or something like that and reports the results, because it seems like that's the key right now until there's, immunity through a the vaccine, so hopefully the technology will keep moving forward. It seems like it's come a long way, obviously, in the last 6-7 months that we've been dealing with this. So if they keep advancing it, hopefully it'll be easier. Hopefully we just get this vaccine and get it straightened out and get back to some kind of normal. As we're watching, I just read the other day, 100,000 restaurants have closed already, and it's just.
Where'd you read that? Who said that?
I think it was. I don't know if it was the National Restaurant Association or one of the restaurant emails I get, but that was a number that came up that was just like, wow, it's massive. I mean, I don't know. Do you know what's the total number of restaurants in the country? It seemed like a high percentage, whatever it was. It was like,
yeah, I don't know if I'm buying that, but I don't know. Limited. Well, just in our little schedule fly world, we haven't seen anywhere near that type of runoff. But who knows? Like, it depends on, like, there's so many things, right? That the reason you hear that number, I think, is that, like with anything news related, if it's ho hum, nobody cares. But when you say a number like 100,000, everybody pays attention, and there's a lot of incentive, of course, to for that to sound really bad, because there's a lot of people that will benefit from that. Now, there have been plenty that have closed. 100,000 seems really extreme to me, but again, it depends on, like, how do you classify? What does that mean? Like, the National Restaurant Association will say there's like 900,000 or 1 million restaurants, but that's like, they'll qualify like a hot dog stand, as a restaurant. So it's really hard to know.
right.
I'll tell you that we've seen maybe, like 8% or something of our, like, a net loss of 8% maybe of our customers, which would be, we've picked up customers and then we've lost. So that's net. So gross, it's probably higher. But if there's several 100,000 independent restaurants in the U.S., which should be about right, I think, from all the research I've done, 100,000 would be very high. Anecdotally, have you seen that? Like, have you seen 30% of the restaurants around you in Chicago close?
No. But I think the 100,000 number was more like, I figured it was like 7% of the restaurants or something like that. But like you said, it could be, like you said, hot dog stands and really, very small operations. But, I don't know. I read a lot of headlines of restaurants closing in Chicago. If you go to, the Chicago Eater and Time Out, and they have ongoing lists of notable restaurant closings, and there are a lot.
Yeah.
In the northern suburbs here, not so much. In the neighborhood, all these people are hunkered down up in the suburbs here, and they're still ordering a lot of takeout and dining outdoors and limited capacity. So it's different. But in the city, where, you think about, I don't know how much time you spent in Chicago, but River North and West Loop is just like restaurant after restaurant after restaurant.
Yeah.
And there are people that live in those neighborhoods, but those restaurants rely on tourism. They rely on business. They rely on full hotels. They rely on people coming in from the suburbs on the weekends to party in the city. So
Yeah.
they rely on a lot of people that don't live in their neighborhood to make these restaurant neighborhoods really vibrant, and they're really awesome. And they really, that's where I think there's a lot of suffering going on, at least in the Chicago area, where there are neighborhoods that are restaurant destinations, and people aren't heading to those destinations quite as much as they used to. And they're not, the hotels, of course, the hotel business is really hurting, probably more so than the restaurant business. I don't know where they are currently, how much travel is kicked back in, or business travel, but it does seem like it's still suffering greatly and will continue to. So those empty hotels and those empty offices are really hurting those downtown areas, dense city areas where there are, there's hundreds of restaurants in these neighborhoods.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt the densely populated metropolitan areas are, it's a big struggle. New York City as well. We see a ton of that in New York. I wonder if like, if you think forward a year or two or whatever, like we'll eventually get back to, I mean, it may not be the exact same as before, but people, they want to travel, they want to be together, they want to go to restaurants, like people are going to stay cooped up so long, and maybe then there's a vaccine, and then you wonder if a lot of these restaurant folks are able to reopen at a revised concept plus cheaper rent. Seems like rent's got to go down in a lot of those places. It's just not sustainable, because even if we get back to something like, who's to say, we won't have another one in a few years. It's totally different. Causes this again.
Right. I mean, there's talk about there being, more pandemics, but who knows, But, as far as the rent goes, the landlords have obligations too. So, there's,
They got
is it going to be rent coming down because the landlord lost the building, or because the creditors allowed them to write off some of the value of their property, or, I mean, some landlords, every situation is different, right? Every lease is different. Every restaurant's in a different situation, but landlords a lot of them are probably in a tough spot too, as far as being able to, some of them are in a better position to lower rents, and some of them are not in a position to lower rents,
well, they got a mortgage to pay. Yeah. I mean, it's not just an easy thing like, oh, you can just lower the rent. Within the mortgage holder has got investors, and it's a big chain.
Right.
But,
and that's the thing about things coming back to normal, is like the whole economy is really getting rocked. I mean, I don't think the stock market is a true indicator of how much suffering is going on in our world. And, I think a lot of people, just think about people that work in the restaurant business and how many jobs have been lost and how much income has been lost there, and all of the effects of that spider webbing out through the economy, and all these other businesses that are suffering. Long term, what does it mean for the restaurant business? I don't know. I mean, people are going to potentially have a lot less disposable income going forward for some time. That may be an issue for rebuilding. Is the economy going to support? I mean, people are still going to eat, but how are they going to eat, right? And what's it going to be? And what is it going to be a real luxury to have a sit down restaurant anymore? Or is that, and that's the business I'm in. I love to create the event. I love to create the hospitality environment, the place where people come and gather and enjoy and be with their neighbors and friends and meet people. And, feeding is an important part of what we do, but the creation of the event and the place is what we do. And I think, that's the part of the business that could really get hit hard for a while, I think, through this. So it's, who knows what the future looks like. We just got to keep moving forward, we just got to keep figuring out how we're going to get through the next 6 months, stay relevant and stay in business and keep people employed and keep serving our communities, and keep feeding our families.
That's right, man. I mean, you've got the right mindset, because you're focusing on the things you can control, not on the things you can't control, which is how long does this last? The weather there is going to be crazy, right? In Chicago in the winter, it's the windy city. It's cold. Like, how do you eat outside? I mean, even with heaters, it gets tough. So, but you get up every day and you just do the best you can. And of course, that saying, I really believe this, that desperation is the mother of all invention, or necessity is the mother of all invention, or however it goes. It's very true. I mean, there's a lot of, in an unfortunate situation like this, a lot of creativity and innovation will come from this, that will be positive changes that will endure. But I'm still a firm believer that it'll take time. I think that smart, thoughtful, intentional, creative folks like yourself that also, have the benefit of maybe not being in the unfortunate situation of being on like some of those densely populated streets you mentioned there in Chicago. You've got a community that's behind you, and y'all will figure it out. And people have been going to restaurants since we've been around, right? Like, restaurants have endured everything forever. They've endured plagues and panics before. I mean, restaurants have been here in some form or fashion for, hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever. And that doesn't change. Human nature doesn't change, I think, in the sense that we want to be around good people in our community. We want to share our highs and our lows with our friends and our family. And we want to do it somewhere where somebody's taking care of us. And people like you and your team that take good care of people will, you got a lot of good, you got a lot of equity in the bank of karma right now, Chick. You're a good guy, and you're a thoughtful guy, an intentional guy, and a genuine and authentic person who, you'll get through this. I believe that. I believe folks like you will. That's why I like talking to folks like you so much, and so many of our customers who I think are just doing things for the right reasons. And you're in hospitality for more than just making a buck. And that's why I love independent restaurants so much, and folks like you so much, man. I say all of us here at Schedule Fly. When I say that, I mean that.
Yeah, and I think, it's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of mom and pop shops who, I think about people that are maybe 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and they've been working really hard and going through a hard time. And it's like, I understand those people just kind of like hanging it up, it's like, man, I don't have the energy to reinvent myself one more time, and I really feel for those people. I feel, they've worked all their lives to build an asset that, was part of their plan for their retirement or whatever it might be. And, it's tough. Like, I really feel for the people out there that are, really, I feel fortunate. I feel lucky. I feel really, decisions I've made have put me in communities and marketplaces that have allowed us to continue to do okay and continue to get by and keep moving forward with a lot of support and a lot of encouragement. And it's, I feel really fortunate. But I feel for those that are really suffering in our business. I think it's such a challenging time, and, who would have seen it coming? It's like,
yeah. Well, there's seems like all success is like some combination of some factors, whether it's hard work, smarts, creativity, authenticity, but there's always luck in there. Right? Like, if you're successful in any way and you don't account for luck, you're lying to yourself. I think that. I mean, I really believe that. There is luck. Unfortunately.
I agree, man. I agree. It's like right place at the right time, or some happenstance decision you made along the way, or, something steered you in a direction, and, luck comes and goes. Some of it's good, some of it's bad,
Well, take the good luck while you can, because, there's always that, at some point, the bad luck comes too, probably. But let me ask you this. You worked for Dave Query at some point. Where was that? Were you in Boulder, or?
Yeah, I was in Boulder. I was in Boulder in the early mid 90s.
Okay.
Right when he had opened Zolo, and he had opened Zolo probably within the year, several months before I moved to Boulder, and I started as a server, and I did some bartending there. And then within that year, he opened his first Jack's, the original Jack's Fish House on Pearl Street. And I did a little bit of work there, but mostly I was at Zolo. And my partner, my ex-wife now, she was on Jack's team, and she actually went and helped open Jack's in Denver too. She was a trainer for him. But we were servers and bartenders in Dave's organization. I think it wasn't even called Big Red F yet. It was just at that point it was Zolo and Jack's, and then there was a second Jack's, and then he went on to do other things after we left Boulder, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I asked that because when we started this Zoom series, I called him and asked him to help us get it started, and I have a lot of respect for him. And I find it fascinating. There's certain people that seem to have like this. They leave this wake of other good people that do good things. He's sure one of them. Ramey, Kamita, and Drew at Sweet Cow. It's like all these people that they seem to be the people that we certainly admire and respect a lot, and you're one of them as well, of course. And then I just wonder who else are folks in your industry that you've learned from or have a lot of respect for that you've worked with over the years?
Yeah, I mean, Dave is certainly, working with Dave and seeing what he was doing with restaurants in the early 90s was, I loved it. It was like he was doing, a quality of dining in a casual way and a real community focus in a way that I hadn't seen before in my experience. And but prior to that, I did work at, when I came out of Cornell, I went to the hotel school at Cornell and I was recruited by Let Us Entertain You here in Chicago. So Rich Melman's organization was where I really, I went through the management training program, and I mean, that was incredible. I mean, that organization probably, it was 1990 when I came out of Cornell, and I went right to work there. And he had about 30 restaurants at the time, most of them in the Chicago area, but I think there was one in Arizona, and there was something up in Minneapolis, I think. And he had a few that weren't in the Chicago area, but he had like 30 some restaurants and had $100 million company back in, 1990. And,
Wow.
but his principles were amazing. I mean, one of the things that he really focused on, I remember through his training programs was awareness, really trying to find people and encouraging people to open up their awareness of themselves and others. So he had this, like, I'd say Melman, I don't know how people talk about his restaurants and his success, but he had a real kind of like a psychological approach to his business, and really looking at encouraging people to look at their own mental health and their own responsibility. And I think it really laid the foundation for his huge success. Um, so working in that organization as a young manager was a really great experience. And then I worked for Steve Sobel and Howard Natinsky were guys that own a place called Southport Lanes, which was just announced this week that they're going to close. But they had a restaurant group they still have a restaurant group called Spare Times, although I think Steve owns the group now and Howard went his separate ways. But with those guys, I actually learned the investment side of the business, how to raise money from friends and family to open up a business. And that was a real good little foray. For me, it was like my business school. I got to go learn, how to put an investment deal together. But I think from other operators that I learned from, I read, Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, and I was like, wow, this is like all the stuff that I believe in, so much stuff that Dave was doing in his organization, Query, and so many things that Melman was doing in his organization, and so many things that rang true to me. So I think, when I look at like the principles of that heart-based love for hospitality and success in business, I think, Query and Melman and Danny Meyer are the guys that I think are just like that ones that I was exposed to that really resonated with me from a values point of view of what their philosophies and their ability to put it into action. I think that they all really walk to a very similar style of management and philosophy in the business that resonates with me. And, I've certainly adopted and felt an affinity for their values and try to live them in our organization. But I think, I think they all come down to really good relationships. They all come down to the things that are really important in life is learning and growing about learning and knowing yourself and growing yourself and bringing that to relationships with other people in your organization and encouraging that in others. And I think that's what they do, and that's the heart of their success. And that's kind of what we do too, is we try to learn and grow. And and all of us will admit, I'll admit, and I'm sure all those people that I pointed to would admit that we all make mistakes. We all screw up every day, and we learn from them, and our organizations make mistakes, and we got to keep moving forward, move forward with those values and move forward to continue building relationships. That's what we started with earlier, is the key of relationships and getting this outdoor restaurant open was all based on being human with other humans, and I think that's at the basis of what those guys are doing.
And the awareness thing, and you just exemplified that, which is saying, I make mistakes. Being, I've really, one of the things I've really become fascinated with over the recent years as a father, as a husband, as a business person, as a customer, is being self-aware and finding the right balance between optimism and confidence. Confidence is so important to be successful in any relationship. Believing in yourself, but also, and confidence comes from your ego, right? But also being willing to check your ego quickly and put it aside and not let your ego take over and keep you from being aware enough to admit when you screwed up, like made a mistake. And I find that the more that I do that, the happier, the more content I am. In other words, the more when I look at my son and say, man, I really screwed that situation up with you. Like, I didn't handle it well and I was a bad role model example, and here's why. Or having that conversation with my bride, or knowing in any domain, having that awareness. That is a massively, it's like a superpower almost when you're really self-aware and you don't buy into your own BS, right? Like you're willing to say, to humbly be thankful when you've had success, but also recognize a big part of that's luck. It's not just me. That's setting your ego aside and being aware, or admitting when you made a mistake. It can be hard to do if you're not wired that way naturally, which I don't think I was. But I think that when you get to a point, it's almost like it becomes this superpower where you don't carry this baggage of trying to inauthentically not own your mistakes, or when you become less judgmental because you look at a situation, you go, well, that person is a jerk. And you go, yeah, but what would you do if you were in that person's shoes? And, maybe they're not aware, but it really becomes a powerful thing, I think. And you exemplify that, Dave, without question. All the people I mentioned that you mentioned really do. And you mentioned Melman and psychology is almost like, man, the more you really start to understand human nature and psychology, it's so relevant and applicable. It's like one of the most important things I think you can learn, and you can teach your kids and you can teach your employees. It's awareness, it's understanding human nature. That's like a really powerful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the key to that is, how can you understand others if you don't understand yourself? So you've got this
Yes.
you've got this laboratory to work on yourself every day, right? And I think, what you're saying about confidence, I've learned that confidence is almost like the flip side of humility. It's like it actually, like, to be really confident, it takes some humility, because you have to know, you have to have some awareness around your own weaknesses and things you don't know, and some idea that you're never going to be perfect, but you still can. I think confidence is almost like releasing your own. Letting yourself be free to be who you are, at the same time knowing that who you are is far from perfect, and
Yes.
and because I don't think any of us are perfect, and we're all going to make mistakes. So, but you also, there has to be this like humility and understanding that we're going to make mistakes and things aren't going to be perfect, but at the same time we can't be overly self-punitive to the point where we don't allow ourselves to be good at what we are good at, and
That's right.
and continue to grow. But I think, yeah, it's just life is just a huge exploration, and we got this laboratory in our own minds and our own hearts to understand ourselves, and we can learn to grow and understand ourselves, and you have so much more understanding of other people. And like you said, it's like, yeah, someone might be acting like a jerk, but are they really a jerk, or is that just the culmination of their circumstances at the moment? And we've all been there. We all share the same emotions, and we all share the same experiences on some level. Some people have more extreme experiences in one direction or the other, but over time, being able to have compassion or empathy for others certainly takes you a long way in this business. And at the same time, you got to get things done. You got to get through the day. You got to pay the rent. You got to pay the bills. You got to do all those things. But hopefully we can do it with a lot of understanding of ourselves and others, and do it in a way that's humane, and brings people together. We're in the business of bringing people together. So much of what we do, how we see the world and how we interact with the world is going to determine how successful we are in bringing people together.
Yeah, that's right, man. Well, I think that, it's interesting because you pointed out three people. Two of them are very, very well known in the industry. Well known in the sense that, like, Danny Meyer's book is like, it's almost like the Bible for hospitality. So many people have read it. So many people I've talked to have read that book and have gotten so much from it. And Let Us Entertain You is extraordinarily well known nationally, as you said, $100 million business back in the 90s. Dave's a little bit different because Dave is, he's certainly had a lot of success. He's got like 15 locations, 6 concepts. One of the things I really admire about him is that I'm always like, hey, do you know so-and-so? He's like, dude, I'm so unconnected. I don't know anybody. I just do my thing, which I think is great because he doesn't overdo the PR, shine the spotlight, get attention thing, like win awards. He's just in there, just taking care of business. And the reason I bring that up is because, without sharing names, we've had some unfortunate situations recently where we have some customers that have been really good at garnering a lot of this attention and these awards and PR and all this kind of stuff. They get the spotlight. They're good at getting the spotlight for legitimate reasons. Boy, I'll tell you what, though, we've had some that have flown too close to the sun, I guess, because when you get that spotlight, the challenge is people will come after you. And we're seeing some of that right now. There's just a lot of divisiveness obviously in our culture and society, and there's a lot of anger, and it gets misdirected sometimes, or not misdirect. I shouldn't say that. I think there's legitimate reasons some of these folks have, maybe overlooked things in their organizations, but boy, they will find the people that have the brightest spotlight on them, and they go after you. And we're seeing some of that, a little bit of that cancel culture right now coming after some folks that, we know, and it's hard to see. It's unfortunate, but it's the downside, I guess, of having that attention sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes maybe the PR machine, it works to build the business, but it also can make you look bigger than you are, maybe, yes. Or and turn you into, like you said, the cancel culture. It can be really tough because it's everybody makes mistakes, and yep. Some mistakes are worse than others, but it's certainly and people need to be held accountable. But I don't know, it's the jury of social media out there can be pretty harsh, I guess. And I think it's interesting, like you say, like Dave just focuses on what he does. He's not, the attention will come his way because of his success in his business, not because he's focused on getting attention from the media or elsewhere. There's different approaches. Some people do focus on the attention, and I'm sure it works very well for some, and for others, it may be leading to some problems.
It's a risky proposition sometimes. I think you kind of nailed it, which is, if you do things the right way and you focus on what you do, you're going to get the right amount of attention from the right people, just through word of mouth and the right way, right? The thing is, like, telling a story is really important, and I value that a lot. We value that a lot. When you tell a good story, it makes a difference because people like stories. The challenge, though, is if you become so good at telling a story, sometimes the story is, like you said, it's focuses so much on the positives that the negatives get hidden, and then that can get accelerated when you do make a mistake, which everybody does. People are going to want to take you off that pedestal. So it's been interesting, but I've really I'm just become very aware of that. Lately, seeing some folks that, I care about really struggle with some of that. And again, for legitimate reason, but sometimes, it's you become like the epicenter of all of this stuff. Like the industry's fraught. I mean, it has been forever with, let's just face it, like negative behaviors, work hard, play hard. There's substance abuse, there's sexual harassment. I mean, the industry has got to do better. And the industry's moving in that direction. But sometimes, you can become this center of the attention, and you can rise fast and fall fast, unfortunately. But on that note, Chick, I want to get your thoughts about like your industry, because it does so much good. And I think that's probably part of why there's some of these challenges the industry's had, because it's hard and stressful to take good care of people and provide them with love and hospitality and warmth and smiles and happiness and make them feel good. Like doing that every day, all day, is like really hard. And that's why you get that work hard, play hard, where people will, they'll go out and you are surrounded by alcohol, and there's just lots of things that can lead to negative behaviors as a result of that. And it's, it's an unfortunate thing. It's happened in the industry forever. I think the industry's moving in the right direction, but it's still got a long way to go. But I'm curious your thoughts on that, about how do you avoid all that in your industry?
I don't know. You got to find balance in your life. You got to, in fact, myself, I'm actually getting together with a friend this afternoon to go for a bike ride. I'm like, I haven't exercised in months because I've been working so hard. And I'm like, I need to exercise. I need to just go and move my body physically in a way that's not standing on my feet, because I've been on my feet like 10, 12 hours a day. And for me, we've talked about it before, a meditation practice is what I do, but some people, do yoga, or they do, they kite surf, or, they do, whatever their practice is that kind of takes them away from it all, that is healthy. Like I think everybody needs some kind of healthy practice in their life, whether it's spiritual prayer, meditation, or, yoga, Pilates, going to the gym, exercising, like there needs to be, got to keep that balance going. I mean, for me, even though I haven't been exercising, I've still been doing my meditation practice. And, but also like sleep has suffered from me. I mean, you can probably tell I'm really tired today. Like I'm just, if I don't, actually I slept really well last night, but I have a buildup of not getting enough sleep because I've been getting home late. I get home, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I can't go right to bed. So I'll watch a movie or watch some, read something, or, whatever it is, and stay up. And, and I can see like there were, a few weeks there, I was like, man, I'm cracking open a beer like almost every night. Like I can't be doing that every night, cracking open a beer. So I have to, like, being back in the operation at the intensity level that I am, like I have to watch that stuff. I have to make sure that I'm staying healthy and eating well. Like if I just, eat on the fly at the restaurant, I'm sometimes putting the wrong things in my mouth. So I got to be like intentional about, no, I'm going to sit down and have a meal, and it's going to have a lot of veggies in it, and I'm going to, so it's like, I'm kind of in the throes of that right now, where I was saying like, oh, I'm starting to get a little out of balance here. I'm not exercising. I'm not eating well enough. I might be having a few too many drinks, and I haven't been like that for a long time, but because of the past 6 months or 8 months of all the intensity I've been through, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of letting my habits erode. So it's actually interesting having this conversation right now, because I've been at this point right now. I'm like, you're exercising, you're paying more attention to what you're eating, and it does take some self-awareness to really watch what's happening. If you're not feeling well, you probably got some things out of balance, and so that's where I'm with. But yeah, it's challenging. I mean, it's really easy to turn a few good times into a bad habit, or just time goes on, like, well, I'll eat healthy next week, or I'll exercise next week, or I'll start meditating next. It's like you gotta bring healthy practices into your day-to-day life. And I think sleep's the biggest thing that I feel like I'm lacking. Like I got to figure out how to get to bed earlier, like that's the biggest thing for me.
That's really challenging because you come. I mean, you can't work a day like that, and like you said, you can't just come in and go. You're wired. You gotta
Yeah.
unwind, sleep, exercise, prayer, meditation, healthy food. Those things are the foundation for. I mean, those are superpowers too. If you're getting those things, you can do anything. But in your world, in your industry, in hospitality, it's very hard to find that balance, and it's very easy to let that slide. And this goes back to what you were talking about with being aware, Chick, which is you're doing it right now, going, okay, I got to be aware. It will just get worse and worse and worse until, whatever, something breaks or something like that. So I'm glad to hear that, man. It's such a big thing. I never really got that until the last few years. And I really began to understand that these basic things we kind of take for granted, like, sleep, I'll sleep, I can get sleep later. Those things are, if you get, good exercise and sleep and good food, man, you can do anything. But that will also, it can get away from us quickly. I'm glad to hear you're taking good care of yourself, man. It makes your life and your career sustainable too. You're not going to get burned out and exhausted.
Exactly. It's easy to go down the path of, well, this feels good right now, and I'm going to relax, and but it's like that's not the long-term answer. Drink, alcohol, whatever it is. I mean, not all that stuff has its place in people's lives to one extent or another, or not at all. But you have to watch you have to, I guess it's your habits. You have to make sure that you've got good habits, because those basics that are, obvious, everybody knows, take care of yourself, sleep, nutrition, rest, don't overdo it. It's easy for it to get out of balance for us, like I said, I was like watching myself like, oh, I think I'm getting a little out of balance here. Like I need to rein this in and get back into a place where I'm getting more rest and I'm taking a little bit better care of myself so I can keep doing this long term. Like you said, like we can't keep doing it and expect the results to continue to be good, for our personal life and our business.
Yeah. When you have that internal conversation, anytime you go, I'll get to that soon. That's when you got to go, oh, okay, I got to start that right now. Cause exactly. I won't get to it soon. So, hey, have you seen this documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma?
I did see it. Yeah.
Ooh, man, I watched that last night. That was the reason I asked that is because, it's these social media tools can be really valuable. And they actually talked about this and about whether something's a tool or not. And they can be used as valuable tools, particularly in hospitality, but it's quite an interesting thing. If you're watching this or listening to us on this Zoom here, folks, check out The Social Dilemma, especially if you have kids. I have 3 kids, so it really struck a nerve with me. But that was something I was thinking about. Like, that's a way to get out of balance now too. I almost feel like after watching that like social media is almost like a drug or alcohol. Like it's okay in doses, but you better be real careful because it gets very addictive and it can overwhelm you. And the mental health outcomes from overuse of these things, or the way that the way they make you feel about yourself can be very significant.
Well, it's interesting. Even that it was brought up by one of the people in the film. Where else do they use the term user? Except social media and like illicit drugs. Like they actually. I mean, these are people that were high up in the social media industry who are critiquing it and saying like, hey, we helped build this monster. Now we want to help deconstruct it, or at least turn it into something more constructive. But like you said, like people are getting in these social media rabbit holes that are built by algorithms that are spinning them out of control and, separating people. And it seems like it was, from these people's point of view that were in the film, pretty unintended consequences.
Yep.
But now there's such financial incentive in the system for these companies to bring in so much money through their advertising. Like it really works. Apparently it's very effective. I mean, you see things, you go to a website and you see that if I go look for a piece of restaurant equipment, and that piece of restaurant equipment is trolling me all over the internet for the next couple of weeks. everywhere I go, that piece of restaurant equipment showing up on my screen.
Yeah,
Like,
it was weird, man. Like that they know how long you looked at a picture or what you engaged with, and what was really interesting to me though, and this ties into this conversation in a few ways, but it was very interesting to me that the algorithms have gotten out of control. In other words, they talk, like one guy was like, hey, you think about AI taking over one day, and you think about like Terminator and robots. He's like, dude, AI is taking over already. Like, we don't even know what it's going to do. It's smart and it's learning. And it's kind of, they've lost control of it, and which is very scary. But you mentioned the comment about users, and what they said is that the industries where you say that are the illicit drugs, but it was social media and software, which is our industry, which was quite interesting because it really, I stopped to think about this for a minute last night, because we've always sort of been just enough software, but we have always looked at Schedulefly like a tool, right? Like you grab it, you use it, like you tell your team, hey, we're opening tonight or we're not, and then you're done. We don't want our tentacles in you. We want you to be able to grab this thing. It's like a hammer the nail and put it away, because we believe that you have more important things to focus on, running your business, taking care of your team, taking care of your guests. But we're a weird software business in that way, because most of them, it's just constantly adding and adding, and they
well,
want
you're not out there trying to sell us another product. You're not putting advertisers in front of us. So you don't care about how much time we spend looking at Schedulefly. It's a tool, like you said. You're not trying to buy our attention.
Yeah, that's right.
Sell our attention, which is what they came down to. It's like, you are the product in social media.
You're the product. Yeah, that's right.
And you are being sold to these corporations.
Yeah, it's really, it's quite concerning. But if you haven't watched that, folks, whether you have kids or not, I mean, if you're on any social, you should check it out. It's quite interesting, because if you think about a lot of the unrest that's happening right now, and these algorithms are fanning this stuff. Like we're being suckered, really. It's unfortunate, but it's definitely true. It's definitely happening. They were talking about how, like, you could just go, hey, let's create unrest in this country in Africa, and some global leader or some bad actor could do that, and people are unwittingly being used, which is really weird. But I bring that up because all this stuff, to me, and you and I have talked about this before, but like what you do and what matters to us as humans, it's not the technology. It's there. It has a purpose as a tool, but hopefully it gets out of the way, because your relationship with your team, your customers, your town, your fellow business owners, that's what binds us and connects us. That's what hospitality is. And no matter how much technology is deployed, how many algorithms are written, at the end of the day, there's no business that this is more true for than any. Hospitality is about you and me, people, right? Thankfully, like right now, we're using this technology as a tool to connect with each other, and we can actually see each other, which I think is really cool. Because I can't be there. I can't get on a plane and fly there and be with you. So I love that. But the relationship you and I have, that's what's the most important thing here, right? And that relationship building that we started this conversation with, that you do with everybody around you, your purveyors, your community, your customers, your team, your bride, those things are really what hospitality ultimately is. It's always going to be about people. We'll always need that. I just think that's such an important piece of what you do. I don't think it'll go away. It may change, but people need that. And the more people watch things like The Social Dilemma, the more they're going to start being like, man, get that app off my phone. I don't need that stuff. I need this, I don't need to be staring at this screen. By the way, I think I told you this, like, here it is.
You told me about your flipping.
Gone. No more of those apps. no more of those screens. I like it, man. It's made life better. Anyway.
And like you said about the social dilemma, I think whether people are interested in social media or don't use social media, they're not users. It's so relevant to our society right now that being aware of how it's being used is it's important. Whether people are interested in social media or not, I think it's an important thing to know because it's hugely affecting our world right now, and how it works. And these insiders that are turning on it. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see that many almost whistleblower types. They're not really whistleblowers. They're outside those companies now, and they're trying to figure out how to educate people to help fix the problem that they helped create. But it's fascinating, and it's amazing that that many people were involved in the production of that movie, from the industry.
Yeah, what's cool about it is it's not this whistleblower thing where it's like, oh, is it sour grapes, or you never know, like what's their, what's the incentive here, or are they being serious, or are they pissed because they got, no. These are people that wrote this stuff. Like these are people that are still well known and well respected in that community. And the reason what was so fascinating about it was they all realized that they couldn't even avoid this stuff themselves.
They're addicted to it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like, wait a minute, I wrote this to do, and now I can't stop. Like, this is bad. Like, holy cow. Like you said, unintended consequences. It wasn't done for nefarious purposes. It's just the outcome of, again, we talk about human nature, and it becomes so addictive, but it's a good thing because it's sort of like how I think about my kids. And the reason I think about this with you too is like, I'm sure you've probably got some young staff, and I mean, look, that's like what they've grown up on now. I mean, my kids grew up with screens and they have them in front of them all the time. And it's challenging because if you say don't do that, the rebellious teen spirits like makes them want to do it more. It's like when you said, don't smoke cigarettes, they're bad for you. Then teenagers are like, I'm going to smoke then. And what ultimately worked was going, hey, when you smoke, you're being suckered. And they're like, what do you mean? Oh, well, I saw these people that they're taking advantage of you and they're making money off you, and they know that they're harming you and they don't really care because they just want to make money off you. And that was like this ad campaign that MTV started. And that's what really kind of got that turned. And hopefully the social dilemma is sort of the same thing because they really get into that. They're like, they're not thinking about you. They're using you. So be careful. And teenagers might be more like, wait a minute, you mean I'm being suckered? Once people feel like they're being suckered, they look at things a little differently.
Yeah, if they can be rational about it, if they're not already addicted, right? So like they had that little vignette with the young girl, the family, and the young girl, remember she smashed
that case.
That case or whatever to get her phone out during the dinner. She couldn't go without it for 5 minutes. And I've heard, stories of people who've had kids who, they take their phone away from them, and it is like some kind of violent withdrawal. Like the kids are, like it's not, and I'm not saying like these are some spoiled kids. These are kids that they're truly addicted to something, that's like they're having violent withdrawal behavior from taking their social media or their phone away from them.
Yeah, it's just they're not.
It's
they're all good.
And I'd say it's not an individual problem; it's a societal problem.
No, it was done. That's it. It's an experiment. They're the unfortunate generation that's just like part of this big crazy experiment, and we're just beginning to learn how the negative consequences can be. But Chick, man. I'm sitting here petting my dog. She's just going over here, walking around here. But thank you for doing this, man. I'm really glad. I really enjoy doing this via Zoom too. I always like talking to you. It's good to see you. And
yeah, it's nice to be face to face.
Very much, man. Yeah. This is just a lot of fun. I always learn from you, and I always feel like you're just you're an inspiring guy, man. And I always feel great after I've had some time with you. So. Selfishly, thank you, but also thank you from Schedulefly for doing this, and for all the folks that are just trying to get through this, and even knowing sometimes that it's just knowing there's other people out there having to deal with the same stuff can be helpful sometimes. And so I really thank you for taking the time, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations. Gives me a lot to think about as well. And it's always nice to connect and share with the community on Schedulefly. So thanks for
Awesome,
having
man.
us.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I'll let you get back to it. Anytime, let me know, man. Call me, text me. I'm always here for you.
All right, Will. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Thank you. See you, Chick.
Take care, brother.
All right. Bye.
Bye.